Inflation Vacation is back on KFAN. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. That's every hour from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. To enter the keywords and learn more, head over to KFAN.com. Inflation Vacation is powered by 2 men and a junk truck.
Here comes the beloved scribe, Ben Goessling from the Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, courtesy of Standard Heating and Air. StandardHeating.com is where you can learn more about that. And let's begin with Sam Darnold's second interception at Jacksonville. Here's what it sounded like.
3 receivers right. Aaron Jones in motion to the backfield to join Sam Darnold on 2nd and goal. Darnold out of the shotgun. 2-man rush by Jacksonville. Darnold stands in the pocket to the end zone.
Are you kidding me?
They throw an interception, center of the end zone. 2-man rush. They drop 9.
Oh, my.
And they fooled Sam Darnold. That's an interception, I believe, from Monteric Brown, 3rd year from Arkansas. Sam, the man on the fan, has thrown 2 interceptions, and that was a great opportunity for the Vikings to take the lead.
Threw it behind the wide receiver, Paul. It wasn't even close.
But it's for naught.
Now, the operative 5 words there would be 2-man rush by Jacksonville. And that plays into that tweet we talked about briefly into the radio show yesterday, a little bit in the open today, that I caught from Ben Goessling, at Ben Goessling via the X machine. That split safety tweet you dropped yesterday was eye-opening. Please explain, and good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, the Jaguars kind of went to an extreme with an approach I think we've seen people use against the Vikings a lot, and the split safety stuff obviously has been popular around the league all season. We've seen people complain about it. I think the Mel Kiper thing about there's too much split safety coverage going on in the NFL. It's taken away from enjoyment of the game. So we've seen a lot of this, but the Jaguars went to an extreme that nobody has. I think Next Gen Stats said, the NFL's stat operation basically said, since 2018, which I assume is when they started charting this stuff,
right,
that nobody has played more split safety coverage than the Jaguars did on Sunday, like 93% of their snaps. So they basically said, we are taking Justin Jefferson, anything you want to do over the top, away.
Yeah.
And if you want to beat us with something else, go ahead. But we are not giving you that. And then, obviously, that challenge led to the turnovers that kept the Vikings really from turning that game into a blowout.
And see, when the split safeties, when you watch it back, they start about 8-9 yards from the line of scrimmage. Yep. Then there's the snap, the back pedal, 3, 5, or 7 steps. Well, now they're 15 to 20.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's 92.9% of the game. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I mean, O'Connell even seemed like he was a little bit perplexed that they went to that degree with it. I think they've seen that approach. Certainly, you've seen a lot of teams do that to Jefferson. But the fact that they just said, we don't care about anything else. We are taking this away from you. I mean, he talked about it after the game. They give up the rushing yards to Aaron Jones. They give up the stuff. I mean, Hawkinson, I think, had 3 or 4 third down conversions. Josh Oliver makes a number of plays. I think the tight ends had over 110 yards combined in that game. So they essentially said, all of this is fine. We are just not giving you Justin Jefferson. And he kind of said, well, okay, if you want to play it that way, that's great. But if that game is more efficient in the red zone without the turnovers, it probably is a little more lopsided than it was, given what the yardage turned out to be.
So when Sam did his post-game press conference, I was walking around the Vikings locker room doing some defensive drive-bys for Monday 9 to noon, so I didn't see the presser. Could you just with, I mean, you gut feeling, discernment, just what you've seen, what you know from a countenance, or just somebody, having contrition or vulnerability with Darnold, could you tell that it was kind of like, yeah, I know. Like that can't happen. Yeah. But like he knew that I'm trying to force this thing in to 18, not to appease him, but because he's really good.
Yeah.
Or was it like, he thought he was open and it wasn't close to being open and he's just taking L's?
Well, I mean, I think there was some decision-making stuff there. There certainly is this thing that you kind of have to play with Justin Jefferson where he is really good. Do you want to give him chances to get the ball? But then you can't put the ball in situations where it's going to get picked off. And I think the other piece of it, the decision making was one thing, but that interception, and I think Pete talked about it on the highlight there, that it was behind him.
Yeah.
I mean, he missed his spot, I think, on the third one too. that got picked kind of over by the pylon, that looked like he missed where he wanted to go with it as well.
Even when he was hitting, it was at times Jefferson down by his shins, Oliver having to stop and turn
somebody
around.
up. Yeah, yes. I didn't feel like he looked like a pitcher that didn't have his best stuff. I didn't feel like he was hitting his spots all day. So, and he comes off after, I think it was the third interception where they had the run back, where he tries to make a tackle on that play, and I think the TV broadcast showed him kind of squeezing his hand a little bit. So I asked him about that after the game. Was that a factor? And he said it was good enough to finish. He didn't feel like that was a major issue, and obviously the picks come before that happened. He had the one that was overturned later in the game because of the offsetting penalties, but it seemed like for whatever reason his accuracy was not there all day, and you combine that with some of the decision-making stuff, you get what he had on Sunday.
Damn.
And but the way that he handled it after the game, specifically with Sam, was kind of, we're going to maintain this ultra confident, ultra supportive. I mean, that's just kind
O'Connell.
of, O'Connell. And it's kind of in the vein of, well, this is our guy. So he threw 3 bad picks, and I'm sitting here chewing on bullets in the background, and it's painful to watch this film, but he's our guy. We're going to have to deal with this. I thought O'Connell did the best he could to kind of, it's a win. Yep. I can't do that. No, he didn't have his best stuff today. But we're remaining ultimately uber supportive of Darnold.
Yeah, that has been the approach. And, I mean, when you look at it, they don't really have a lot of other options than that.
Exactly,
I mean, where they're at right now, I mean, there's no J.J. McCarthy. Nick Mullins is what he is. I mean, we've seen that already. And if you're looking for a guy that is going to come in and be caretaker and there's no putting the ball up for grabs kind of stuff, Nick Mullins is probably not the guy that's going to give you that approach. So they kind of are where they are, and I think he has realized the best chance they have is to get what they can out of Sam Darnold and try to keep him feeling like he can come out of this. I think there's a lot of that approach, just saying we believe in him, but it also has to be him because we don't really have a lot of other options right now.
Right, and let's build it up from there. Where in the Star Tribune today, Ben has a story, patience at the headline, paraphrasing, patience and precision, keys to getting Sam Darnold back on track. Please explain for those who may have missed it.
Yeah. A lot of what O'Connell talked about yesterday, I asked him a little more to drill down after he had watched the film back of what did you see from Sam? And he talked a lot, and we hear him talk about this a lot, but tying feet and eyes together. I think there's been a little bit of this, and you see it when you kind of watch it back, where is he getting to things on time or is he throwing a little bit late, where especially some of the zone coverage stuff, you get, windows that you thought were open and that squeeze off a little bit more. I think there's a little bit of that, and trying to just put your body in position to throw exactly where you want it. I think a lot of those things he talked about just almost like, and I think there's a little bit of this with Darnold where he hasn't been a starter for 6 or 7 years, even though he's been in the league for that long. There does seem to still be a little bit of this, we're trying to develop him and try to coach him up in a way that you wouldn't have to do with Kirk Cousins in probably the same way because you know what you're going to get. I think there's a little bit of that where you're still trying to build him along the course of the season, too.
Okay, now with the podcast YouTube channel, Star Tribune, whatever you want to call it, it's the Stribs Daily Delivery.
Yep.
Okay, Michael Rand did it after the Jacksonville game with Andrew Kramer, who is a cohort and also covers the Vikings with Ben Goessling. Now, via the Stribs Daily Delivery, it broached the suggestion or the wonderment, if J.J. McCarthy were healthy, would he be considered for quarterback right now? And, Nordo brought that up yesterday, which I would imagine is via talkbacks and or text via Vikings fan line. So that's percolating. It's a hypothetical, but nevertheless, like if he were healthy right now, do you sense things are to a point with Sam Darnold where they would consider McCarthy? I'm not. I
don't think so, because I think, we talked about a lot of these scenarios at the beginning of the season where it was, I think we talked about this exact scenario where if Darnold comes out and he struggles, at what point does that force their hand?
Yeah,
and
what if he's terrible some game, Ben, and just goes and throws like 3 interceptions?
Right. Yeah, and a couple of them are in the end zone, and it's a game they should win.
Just terrible in the red zone. Yeah. He does everying he possibly can to get his favorite team to lose the game.
Hypothetically speaking, if that were to happen, what would they do with J.J. McCarthy? I think we had that conversation quite a bit before the season, and I think it would have depended on development with J.J. McCarthy, but on a philosophical level, they were not going to base that decision on when he was necessarily better than Sam Darnold per se. It was going to be, when is this guy ready to, I compare this a lot to baseball, I think, where when is he ready to come up from the minors and not be sent back down?
Yeah.
I mean, there is no minors obviously here, but you can think about it that way a little bit. When is he ready to come up to the majors and be in your rotation, be your number one starter every 5 days, and you're not going back to, well, we didn't really like that, we got to send him back down. And I mean, kind of like what you see happening with Anthony Richardson right now in Indianapolis.
That's a perfect example, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with a guy that they liked, obviously everybody saw the clip with O'Connell going to talk to him after that game, and
even Bryce Young in Carolina, where they're bouncing back and forth with Dalton.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
That's ugly, yeah.
Yeah, so I think a lot of this would have been, I mean, certainly you're going to be tempted by it, and I think they were excited enough about what they had seen from McCarthy in training camp and a little bit of the preseason, certainly that Raiders game, that had he gotten more work with the ones in those joint practices with the Browns, maybe that speeds things up. But I still think that timetable was going to have more to do with McCarthy than anything else around him because of the things we're talking about. You don't want to rush things to his detriment to the point where you feel like he didn't get enough done to keep the job. And I think it's more about that than Sam Darnold. Did you just drain that shot, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I'm 1 of 3 this morning.
Nice. Should have yelled Kobe on that. That was impressive. It just went over the corner of my eye.
You missed the first 2 air balls.
Well, okay, but, 33% is not bad for, it's not Steph Curry.
Go ahead and continue.
Well, 33%.
For an old man with 3 chins who hasn't felt his ribs in 35 years. That's what you meant to say.
I know. In modern basketball, it's probably not that impressive. Yeah. But, I grew up in the 90s. That would have been pretty good.
It's very kind of you.
Sadly, 33%. You could be a starting point guard for the Wolves right now.
Hey,
we need
our
guy
stop
Conley.
that, okay?
We need our guy Conley to step it up a little bit, and he will, because I love Mike. So moving forward, then there is a little bit. You kind of got to live with you celebrate the good, you live with the bad. The 3 picks, we're moving on. Titans around the corner, etc. But this forcing it to JJ thing.
Yeah.
You were mentioning, and Kevin O'Connell talked about it, the footwork and some of those things. But the decision making for me. It feels like in a lot of ways where we watched the evolution and the learning curve of the offense for a Kirk Cousins. And you mentioned that maybe footwork and some of those things weren't on the docket as you're trying to get Kirk into the mix. It was more or less the philosophy of the scheme and all of the things. Well, with Sam, it apparently is a little bit of both. Yeah. So, how much, what can you really do if you're Kevin O'Connell to in some ways you got to coach in the instincts of when it's time to push the number 18 button, and then you got to coach in the instincts of when not to. Yeah. The highlight we played at the beginning of the segment, Aaron Jones, it's a race to the pylon, short pass, easy pass, probably a touchdown.
Yes.
Instead, it's his second interception of the game. How can Kevin O'Connell affect that? Because that's a hell of a lot harder than footwork and some of the other more fundamental aspects of it.
Yeah, no doubt it is harder because you've heard this. I mean, we saw this with Kirk Cousins at times too, where it's this game of, excuse me, how much you trust Justin Jefferson and how much you say, let's not put it up to him when teams are trying to take him away to the degree that they are. And 4 of these 5 interceptions the last 2 weeks have been on passes to Justin Jefferson. And I think at least the first one gets tipped, probably with press coverage, and certainly with press coverage that you could have argued could have been flagged.
There was a holding penalty in there somewhere.
Yeah, there probably was. But then the other 2 are, judgment calls that he makes to take a chance. And I think the one on the dagger cut last week against the Colts was a lot of that as well. So it is difficult because you want to get him the ball, and he's dynamic. He's probably the best receiver in the league. And I'm sure he is sitting there saying too, hey, trust me, get me the ball.
Yeah.
But you can't do it to a point where it's those kinds of mistakes. And if you're going to do it, I thought the second one, if he leads him, that's probably a touchdown, but the placement of the ball, if you're going to do it especially, has to be on point.
All right, so let's let me go down this road and with Justin Jefferson. All right. So because when you, like the Jets and the Colts and the Jags in abnormal fashion per the Next Gen tweet that I saw from Ben, or the Next Gen stat I saw from Ben, that's abnormal. But nevertheless, the common thread there is those teams, more than other teams, rushed 3 or 4 guys, dropped 8 or 7. And after Aaron Jones went out in that London game, it became problematic for Sam. But the 3 or the 4 have to win at the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. where the Colts with Grover Stewart and maybe some other cats, that they were winning a little bit at the line.
Yep.
The Jets didn't win as much as some thought they would. The Jaguars won none.
Right.
Until the end of the game. And that's, because Oliver didn't, what I assume, do his job on Trayvon Walker,
Yes.
because Jefferson was open middle of the field for a 15-yard hit. You're going to move the chains. So, all right, 3-2. The adversary has to win at the line, but this should mean, if this continues moving forward, that Hawkinson, Addison, and Aaron Jones.
Yep.
And Jones is never doubled. Hawkinson has yet to be doubled. Oliver is never doubled. Addison is rarely doubled.
Right.
So, Justin, it's just like patience and precision, like you wrote in your story.
Yeah.
The patience part, really, as much with Sam and or Kevin, goes to Justin, too.
Yeah.
Where he has to understand that there may be 23 targets between 3 guys and 4 his way.
Yeah.
And he has to understand, right?
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I asked O'Connell yesterday at the end of his presser, do you have to have that conversation with Justin in terms of whether there's frustration? Because we see it on the field. You see it on the broadcast as well, the times where he looks pretty flustered by either the ball not coming his way or just it not working out.
Right.
And O'Connell said, yeah, there are also the times where somebody else catches it and he's making a block or he's excited. That's true, but I think he also knows what he means, and he also knows what he is capable of. So there, I think, is a little bit of that conversation that has to be ongoing, as O'Connell talked about. I think a lot of it with Darnold is, yeah, there are times where people are not pressuring, and they're saying, we're going to make you beat us by staying patient.
Yep.
And that's hard for a lot of quarterbacks. I mean, the number of times where...
And coaches.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it, too. We've seen that over the years. Everybody... That kind of became the antidote for Aaron Rodgers that the 49ers used all those times was, fine, we're going to play the Vic Fangio thing, and you're going to get a bunch of 5-6-yard passes because we don't think that you're going to stay patient enough to just take that all day, and we don't think your coaches are going to do that either. I wonder how much of that is the approach here of saying, no, we're not giving you Justin Jefferson. You can take all the 5 and 6 yards gains you want, but we either think you're not going to hit them into tight windows all the time, or eventually you're going to get antsy and try to throw something over the top, and we're going to have a safety there to pick it off.
And
so
we did
there's
twice.
a lot of that challenge. Yep.
And Nordo yesterday brought up, what about the 50-50s? Well, and I think Sam would do that, but it's more 33-67.
Yeah.
Because it's, or 25-75, where it just, Sam hasn't really done that much.
Yeah.
Last game he did a little bit, though.
Well, and with that, the patience is the element that they can look back at last game and they look at those interceptions. Those are awful and don't do those things. Obviously, coach, do your best there to revise that plan moving forward. The game plan is absolutely there, though. The 16-play drive, the 17-play drive. You got to live with it's Hawkinson for 7. It's not sexy.
Right.
And in some ways, I'm curious. It's the quarterback you don't want to get it antsy. I bet you the head coach gets antsy over there, too.
I think
because
that's true.
He's got some stuff on a bar napkin in his pocket that's just blowing people's minds.
Yep.
And he's the chemist there that's worked all week on this thing, and he wants to unveil this thing. Like Kevin O'Connell, I feel like, is somewhat fighting himself, but the blueprint for success was absolutely there despite the scoreline. These long drives, you want to do that to us? We will have the ball for 40 minutes every single game, but next time we're not going to throw a pick in the red zone, and your day is over.
Yeah.
And off what Nordo said, the Vikings are tied for the NFL lead with the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers for completions of 20 yards or more at this stage of the season. So to add to the frustration covenant for the head coach, our guest here in about 45 minutes, I know it's there. I know it's worked.
Yep.
What happened? What happened?
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's I talked to him about this a couple of weeks ago for the story I did on how he's evolved as a play caller. And the thing he said that he's changed the most with is not chasing plays. And he said a lot of it is you go through the week and you draw something up and you think there's no way this isn't going to work. This is going to kill them.
That was before the Rams game, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good piece.
Yes, thank you. It was interesting to hear him say that because we've seen it over the years. It's sometimes with some of the trick plays or some of the shots that he'll take, and it's like, okay, I guess I see where you're going there, but in real time it doesn't come to fruition. And there's still moments of that where you see a lot of the gadget stuff that he'll pop out, but I do think let's not force it downfield if it's not there was better. I think on Sunday Yeah, they had 4 drives of double-digit plays. They had 5, I think, of 50 yards or more. I mean, that game is a couple of possessions from being a laugher.
Yeah.
You can't have the interceptions. That's where it becomes a problem. And I also think being better in the red zone, being able to run the ball would help them as well. But yes, there is, I think, a lot of that where the head coach is probably saying, I got a lot of stuff I want to get to here, and it's going to be great, but it's got to also be there. I think there's a constant fight for him too.
Yeah, how's Sam handling all of this? We've looked at it through the lens of Kevin O'Connell, and he is indeed going to hang out with PA at 11 and all of that. But how do you feel what you're getting from Sam in pressers and just how he's addressed these things? He's been open and honest, which I think you really have no choice to do. But where do you think Sam's head is at with this and knowing we won a game, but wasn't because of me?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of realization that you need to fix a lot of those things pretty quickly. O'Connell talked about that yesterday and said he's in a good headspace. He's ready to get back to work pretty quickly here. Players are obviously back in on Wednesday. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this, when you've been through the kind of career that he has, there probably is this temptation to say, oh, here we go again. And a lot of what they are going to have to do here, he has not really been in this spot very much where it's a team that's going to be counting on you into December, probably into January. There's no somebody trying to get the hook from off stage to take you off. This is going to be his job, I think, without any, barring some major catastrophic thing where they start losing a bunch of games because of it, or he gets hurt or something. It's going to be his show. So
do you think he grips at all about the future? I mean, it's you got to live. You got to live in moments. But this is a guy that he lost the starting job. Yep. And there's got to be an element on the bench with Shanahan in the Bay, and it's Purdy starting, and he's thinking, will I ever get another chance?
Yeah.
Gets another chance, team 7-2, and he's made some mistakes. He's been imperfect. But this is his platform, not just in the process of resurrecting his career, but to cast the gaze years into the future with potentially a multi-year deal. I wonder if that grips him at all.
I mean, he's a human being. I'm sure that's got to be in the back of his mind.
Shame on him if it is.
Yeah,
seriously.
It's
if he thinks about that for a second right now, shame on him.
It would be a problem. Yeah, that's where you have to block all that stuff out. But it's tempting to have those thoughts come into your head. I think that's probably where Josh McCown comes in here too, because Josh McCown was with him with the Jets when things kind of hit rock bottom, and he has spent enough time seeing him in that spot and earning his trust. I think that's probably an important voice in meetings with him every day as well to kind of keep him on track that way.
Well, lastly on this, it's you'll hear or see, well, here is Darnold's regression to the mean.
Yep.
I disagree with that. A regression I don't disagree with because that's happened with this team. What's the mean? There is no mean for him because I'm not going to accept the Jets or the Carolina Panthers examples and use it comparatively speaking with this team. I mean, he hasn't. The mean is established through the totality of this year, right?
Yeah, he's not a guy that's played 10 years in the league. I mean, Cousins, we could do this where it's like, well, this is kind of what he is. There's enough of a sample size to say good, bad, and different, this is who Kirk is going to be.
Right.
It is a little harder to do that here because it has just been so much of, 4 games here, 5 games here. And some of that is obviously if you play well enough to keep the job, you get the sample size. That would be the counter to that is, hey, if you're good, if you're consistent, you get the big sample size where we know what you are because you've been out there every single week for 10 years. That's not the case here. But yeah, I do see the point in the sense that it is hard to say, well, same old Sam, because there's just not that level of predictability or consistency with what we can go on from his past.
Ben Goessling, courtesy of Standard Heating and Air, standardheating.com. Thank you very much. To the defense around the corner, but first, here comes Max.
The Fan and 2 men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword deposit at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. That's keyword deposit. Enter it now at KFAN.com. Join Corey Coe for Coors Light Hockey Night on Thursday, November 14th at Sunset Grill in Spring Lake Park. Watch Minnesota take on Montreal and play trivia for your chance to win a pair of sweet tickets to the game on January 9th against Colorado. Get all the details now at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Now, the Minnesota Vikings defense, when at full strength, holy cow! Whether it's against the Jacksonville Jaguars or whomever, when that defense goes to full strength, Brian Flores a few weeks ago said to the Scribe and members of the media, the days of us getting free run at the quarterback are done. But they're not.
Yeah, they're not done.
When you go full strength, then you have Grenard, Cashy, and Ivan Pace Jr. about whom to worry. Well, here comes Van Ginkel now. ETN. I think it was ETN.
Yeah.
No, Bigsby. Yeah, I think one of the two.
Their running backs were not good in pass protection.
Holy cow, especially ETN.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to figure out why he's not, he had 2,100 yards over two seasons. He's on pace for 650 this year. When you watch it back, you can completely understand why Tank Bigsby gets the protection part of it almost zero. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think it was him that he didn't even look at Van Ginkel, but they got a free runner.
Yeah.
And when they go full strength, that's what happens.
Yeah, it is, because you're still dealing with that thing of, teams have to say, okay, a running back is going to have to take one of these rushers coming full speed, and that's not a proposition that is terribly easy for a running back. You have to have a guy that's committed to that, knowing that there's going to be a pretty good rusher coming, whether it's Cashman, whether it's Van Ginkel, whether it's Grenard, Dallas Turner, Ivan Pace coming up the middle at times. That's a lot for a running back to have to handle. And you saw it on Sunday when you have a set of running backs that aren't good at it, or maybe aren't that interested in putting their body on the line. There's some business decisions possibly.
Or studying what it takes in a scholarly fashion to know what to do.
Right. They had a lot of runs there where it's, okay, there's a pass rusher on a running back, and they'll take that matchup just about every time.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be a free run, but if you get a running back one-on-one with a pass rusher, especially to the degree of the ones that they have, that's about as close to a free run as you're going to get in a lot of those cases, I think.
Cashman was amazing to me on Sunday. And, he has the first sack.
Yep.
Defense goes to full strength. Stingy as stingy can be. But the longer the race went, the stronger he got off that layoff. He had that sack where he just completely trucked a member of the offensive lineman, but then we grabbed the face mask. But on the kind of game-sealing interception to Bynum, Cashman
set that up.
Exactly. He was a half second from a sack. He just came shooting through there. Blake, I just, I'll say it for a 15th time. I had no idea how good he was.
Yeah.
Not only from the Jets, but from the Texans.
Well, and that was the play where Doug Peterson said after the game, he got asked what happened. He said, I'm not going to tell you because you guys won't figure it out. It's like,
a great thing to say.
Yeah. You're 2-8. It's not a good look, but he's forgotten more football than any of us will ever know. But that play didn't seem that hard to figure out. It was Blake Cashman getting in Mac Jones's face, and Mac Jones is trying to throw the ball and make a play, and obviously overshoots it and it's picked off. But yes, you knew Cashman because he was here and he'd been an impressive player for the Gophers and had a nice start to his career. But this level of impact, when they signed those three guys, I kind of thought, well, okay, Grenard has the big sack numbers. Van Ginkel has the history of Flores, and Blake Cashman's here too. That's a nice pickup, but he didn't seem like he was going to be the headliner of that group. But man, when you see him out and then you see him back the way he's looked, it's pretty obvious what an impact he's made.
And see, for a general manager with a stock trading background, then I'm not a big stock guy, but I would imagine getting them at a certain cost and then having it grow while it's in your portfolio. Cashman had been the green dot guy, had called the defense for Houston one time.
Right.
And it's because Denzel Perryman was injured. In that game, he had 16 tackles, and now he calls the defense for the Vikings, and up to his return, and after, especially, he heard a lot, communication. Just the communication improved.
Yeah.
And that's it's not a penny stock, but that's buying a stock at $15, watching that sucker get up to 40 quickly.
Yeah, the game in that world is not, you should invest in Apple or Amazon. Everybody knows that. The blue chip stocks, everybody knows. It's finding the ones that are growing, that have growth opportunities, that you say, okay, this is something I can buy pretty low and it's going to take off, and this is really it's going to make my portfolio look good. And that's a lot of it, I think, where you see the crossover with general managers from the business, from the finance backgrounds, is saying the game here is not, the player that everybody knows is really good that's going to cost a lot of money. It's where can we find growth? Where can we find ways to improve to get really wonky, our delta, how much things change, how much things improve over time. How can we get better at that than everybody else? And I think that's one of those that has hit. I mean, Brian Flores has talked about it, that he didn't know Cashman was this good until like his daughter, I think, got to know Mike Sherrills last year. And Mike Sherrills was the one that told him, hey, Blake Cashman's the best linebacker I've ever had. And he kind of filed that away, went and watched film. And
when
said,
Mike
he's really good.
The Gophers.
Yes, correct. So I think even Brian Flores was like, this guy's a lot better than we thought. And he stumped for him too. But yes, on all accounts, that one looks like a big win for them in terms of finding him and implementing him the way they have.
Yes, sir.
We've spent some time talking about Stephon Gilmore and Shaq Griffin and of course, against Ben Johnson and McVay's group.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things to nitpick and hopefully point to things to improve. How about Byron Murphy Jr., though?
Yeah.
Every time that we've talked about this, and specifically whether it's you on the show, Vikings fan line, I've gotten a lot of pushback this season, like, oh, you're so focused on Stephon Gilmore. Byron Murphy's been a liability, and here's where Byron Murphy has made. Now, there may be moments where I am not watching every play that Byron Murphy has on the field over the course of a game.
Right.
But when you have interceptions in 3 consecutive games, I believe that requires a tip of the cap. What do you think about Byron? We're so focused on Stephon trying to be ageless, but I think Byron's been really good.
He's had a great year. I mean, he certainly has been. I mean, you have moments where he's a liability in coverage, but I think in coverage recently, he's been really good too. And then, the interceptions, making plays the way he has. I mean, that's been one of the biggest changes, I think, with this defense is they have gotten pressure, but they've also turned those things into turnovers. That was not happening to this degree last year. And now the reason their turnover margin is better than it was last year, I think they've only had 1 fewer giveaway through 9 games than they had at this point last year. The big change is all the takeaways. I mean, they're getting a lot more of those with Murphy, with Bynum, Gilmore against the Jets, obviously. Shaq Griffin had the one, I think, against the Packers. I mean, you're getting those. Van Ginkel certainly has had them, but Murphy leads the team, I think, in interceptions now with 4.
Yeah.
And that and this is in an era where interceptions in general are down. You don't see quarterbacks throw them as much as they used to. So you get 4 in 9 games. That's a pretty good clip.
I still look at it in 2022. The defense, even with Donatel, they had 18 takeaways through the first 9 games. They had 7 the final 9 games, including the playoff game. And that's the only thing I'm thinking about moving forward when, 6.5 minutes left in that game and you're down 0-3 in the take give.
Right.
And you get to Mack twice and then the fumble recovery with Phillips. 20 takeaways now this season through 9 games. That can't fall off. You know what I mean? But it's also impossible to, if you're putting all the plans together, you're gonna be able to, with Flores, put them in spots to make mistakes. Yep. But you can't
that's the key.
You definitely weren't planning for 3 takes in the final 6.5 minutes of that Jags game. So I just look at those takeaways as how do we keep those things coming?
Yeah, a lot of it I think is, like you said, putting quarterbacks in position where they're going to make those mistakes, where they're under pressure and trying to read things out in real time, and all of a sudden something is not what you thought, and you throw a ball over into a window where you didn't expect the defender to be, and then it gets picked off. But yeah, I think a lot of what they have to keep doing is finding ways to get into those throwing lanes. We've seen it happen a number of times, and a couple of the ones on Sunday are overthrows, obviously, when he's under pressure and he's trying to go downfield. But they've had a number of them, too, where whether it's Van Ginkel stepping into a kind of a hot throwing route where you're expecting the screen, or the one that Rodgers is probably throwing hot off of a blitz.
And that gets us back to Cashman being back, right? I mean, Ivan Pace was better, I think, with Cashman back. Van Ginkel kind of just, we're going to let him do what he's been so good at doing. Everything just kind of got normal again, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that led to some good times.
Yeah, everybody's playing the role that they're probably supposed to play. Ivan Pace is not going to be as good dropping into coverage and reading things out as Blake Cashman is. Andrew Van Ginkel was kind of playing that off-ball linebacker thing a little bit more when Cashman was out. Now you can put him back on the edge. He's got 6 sacks this year.
Yeah.
He's better in that spot. So
I wonder how much he just wanted to smash Mac Jones. Did you see how easy he took it on it?
It's like a two-handed shove.
He was almost, maybe I'll even try to slap at the ball a little bit.
I think it's what he said afterwards. He was hoping to get the ball out too. But yeah, he had, that's about as much of a a duck in the sights as you can get.
15 years ago, the cart's coming out.
Yeah, that's one of those where, yes, if that's back in the era of not having those things be a penalty, that hit's probably a little different.
Lastly, Flores speaks today, and correct?
Yes.
And the scribe he'll be at the press conference, of course. That's what high-end scribes do. Well, we now have 2 consecutive games with the curious case of Shaq Griffin. All right. Stephon Gilmore, Harrison Smith, and Byron Murphy Jr. played every play.
Yep.
Okay. They played 44 plays. Metellus played 43, Grenard 42, Bynum 40, Van Ginkel 40. Then we get into the 30s. Griffin played 10.
Yeah.
But he played 20 the week before. So we've gone from, I believe, it's been a precipitous drop, and now it went down to a season low 10.
Yeah.
So he's played 30 snaps the last 2 games. I can't figure this out.
Well, I wonder how much of that are they changing the way they're using the nickel? Because if it's Murphy in the base and you have more plays where they're not in nickel coverage or in dime quite as much, I wonder if the Jaguars ran like 40 plays total on Sunday. So. Yeah. But percentage-wise, you're right. That's way down from where it's been. I wonder how much of that is.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wonder how much of that's just how they're using it. If they're putting Metellus in more of those nickel situations like they've done it last year.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much for stopping by, and we will see you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Ben Goessling covers the Minnesota Vikings for the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com. That's courtesy of Standard Heating and Air and StandardHeating.com. Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, 15 minutes from now, and we are in search of some talkbacks where we will play a talkback for the coach. He loves it. Free iHeartRadio app. Drop a talkback in there for Kevin. State your name and where you're from if possible, and we will replay one of them for the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings 15-20 minutes from now. News du Nord is next.
Fan.
Tune into Wild Wednesday each week for your chance to win tickets to see your Minnesota Wild in an upcoming game. Wild Wednesdays are presented by Jim Beam, a crowd pleaser since 1795.
A truncated News du Nord coming at you more momentarily. Meanwhile, yours truly will be at Hy-Vee Savage today from 5 to 6 with CJ Ham. Hy-Vee in Savage, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Yours truly, a little sit-down Q&A with Minnesota Vikings fullback CJ Ham. And that's today from 5 till 6. Here they come.
News du Nord, 9 to noon, is brought to you, as always, by The Casino. The Casino at CanterburyPark.com. Poker, blackjack, and table games all year round, having sips at Chips. And the NFL Pick'em game, not today, but Thursdays, the NFL Pick'em game. You just take that free MVP card, you make your picks for the football over the weekend, and you have the chance to win hundreds of dollars each and every week. That kicks off at 10 a.m. on Thursday. So take advantage of that, CanterburyPark.com, for all event details. And the Wild off till Thursday, Vox in the Box. Looking forward to that with the Canadiens in town. Will be a tria. And, of course, the Minnesota Timberwolves, who these are kind of weird scheduling bits. I'm not sure I love it. Maybe they love it for travel reasons. But the Timberwolves are kicking off a back-to-back PA in Portland against the Blazers.
Crazy.
A team that they just played at Target Center last week. Absolutely hammered on them. They're 8.5-point favorites tonight, if so compelled. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, as you mentioned earlier, good team, still trying to figure it out. Head coach said, give me 2025 to figure it out. But this is a team, after losing a tough one against the Heat the other night, they have a chance on the road to maybe put a fat lopsided number on Scoot Henderson's Blazers.
Yeah, the Blazers are bad, and the Timberwolves already have dusted them once. They do have a player or two who have returned, who are skilled. They didn't face the first time, but it shouldn't make a difference. And Chris Finch joins 9 to noon tomorrow, about 9:15, 9:17 in the morning. Finchy tomorrow, Wednesday, 9 to noon, courtesy of Second Harvest Heartland.
This news broke.
All right, 3-2.
This news broke this morning. Whoa, holy cats. This news broke this morning during the 9 a.m. hour when we had Twins / Star Tribune columnist Lavelli Neal III at TCO Studios. Dave St. Peter, after 35 seasons with the Minnesota Twins, I thought both of you during the first hour, podcastable later, free iHeartRadio app, you did a great job in terms of kind of building up a guy, again, over the course of 35 years. He goes from running a pro shop to running the team. As president of the Minnesota Twins, Dave St. Peter is stepping away, and Pobo, Derek Falvey, is now going to become the Minnesota Twins president. And Jeremy Zoll is somebody, I believe, a talent and personnel development guy that was brought in by Falvey and Levine when they came to the Minnesota Twins. He's going to be stepping into the general manager role. So a lot in flux here, as the Pohlads, of course, announcing shortly after the season ended that they're going to be seeking to sell the team. And you mentioned Alex Kirilloff. Tough news for him as he has to retire early due to injuries. This is a team that's just over a year removed from playing playoff games, and we got local TV doing interviews with fans on the concourse, playing beanbags before a playoff game. All those good times have quickly transitioned over the course of a calendar year to a lot of things being in flux. Dave St. Peter, 35 seasons, moving into, it sounds like, an advisory role of sorts with the Minnesota Twins. So big news this morning locally. Dave St. Peter, kind of a staple, a name that I've known for many, 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 many years as a Twins fan. He is shifting roles with the baseball team.
And it seems the fan base is loud about this team. Maybe not necessarily about this, like don't let the screen door hit you on the way out. But I mean, during the when the proclamation or when the news came out that the Pohlads are going to be selling a portion or selling the team,
yeah.
I mean, holy cow, the fans were just like, "Don't let the screen door hit you on your way out." I mean, that fan base gets loud.
Well, and I ultimately wonder in the end, Twins fans want the team to win World Series. Okay, so that's a sacred idea. That's a thought. That's why you're a fan. We want the Wilfs to bring a Super Bowl championship to the city. But I'm curious how expectations ultimately are met or not met moving forward. What if the new ownership group says, well, I can't put $250 million into a payroll without a better TV deal, without XYZ amount in merchandise and all of those things. Mm-hmm. You know, I hope that Twins fans are having measured expectations about the future as ownership changes, but still in terms of mid-market existence, that regardless of ownership will remain.
The Miami Dolphins did the Minnesota Vikings a solid last night and beat the Los Angeles Rams. And Thursday night, we have a big one. It is Philadelphia and Washington. I believe it's Washington at Philadelphia, and the winner owns first place in the NFC East, and that also impacts the Vikings' lot in life in the National Football Conference. That's the conference in which the Minnesota Vikings play, and when we return, head coach Kevin O'Connell joins us from the TCO radio studio at FM 100.3 KFAN.